Hello, my darlings. I have a question for you. Do you believe in witches, hexes, curses, spell books? Did you ever watch Harry Potter? If you have, you should know by now that books cannot be trusted. Would you believe I found a spell book that actually took a man's life? This was a spell book written by John George Hoffman in the late 1800s. You see, John was a German-American printer, bookkeeper, and collector of herbal or magical healings and charms. He left Germany in 1802 and settled in Reading, Pennsylvania. That's where he sold books, practiced magic, and also gave instructions in the area of folk magic. This was also known as powwow. It was very big with the Pennsylvania Dutch. His most noted book was called Powwow, A Long Lost Friend. The book contained many things, such as how to cure ailments like toothaches, brain fever, cholera. In addition to herbal healings, it also offered charms and prayers for personal protection. One charm written in the book was stated as this: "Whoever carries this book with him is safe from all of his enemies, visible or invisible, and whoever has this book with him cannot die without the holy corpse of Jesus Christ, nor drowned in any water, nor burned up in any fire, nor can any unjust sentence be passed upon him. So help me," it read. Unfortunately, this charm didn't work for Nelson Raymeyer. He was the poor soul this book was not able to save, as it so claimed to do. In 1928, a man by the name of John Baimar, who himself was a practicing witch, more appropriately called a healer at the time, believed he was hexed or cursed. You see, John established a very good reputation with his community at the time for his amazing healing capabilities. An example was displayed one day when they were leaving the cigar factory where they worked. All the men were coming out after their shift, and all of a sudden a snarling, mad, rabid dog showed up. It was literally foaming at the mouth and growling, and he started to attack the men. And John kept his cool, and he approached the dog, and he spoke softly and calmly to it. And the dog miraculously started wagging his tail. He even licked John's hand and trotted off like a happy little puppy. Now everybody at the factory seen this happen, and it just blew their minds. They became true believers that John had these healing capabilities. He became really, really well known in his community. But shortly thereafter, John started to feel ill. Not like upset stomach. He was not able to eat. He couldn't sleep, and he tried healing himself, but it wouldn't work. It seemed like he lost his magic in a way. Now, somebody was jealous of John, and that's why they put a hex on him. That's what's causing him to be sick. So, John needed to know where this hex came from, because apparently the only way to remove a hex is you need to know who put it on you first. One night, John was laying in his bed, and he couldn't fall asleep. He just laid there, listening to the clock tick. And then, on the stroke of 12, an owl outside hooted 7 times. That was it. John then knew that he had been hexed by his very own great-grandfather, Jacob. Yep, the owl hooted 7 times, and Jacob was the 7th son of a 7th son. So it totally made sense that Jacob had hexed John. The issue is, Jacob was dead, so John couldn't do anything about it. The only thing he thought to do would be to move away from the cemetery where Jacob was buried. So he packed up his stuff and he moved across town. That didn't work. So he moved again, and that didn't work. So then he started taking on odd jobs to earn as much money as he could, and the second he'd get money, he'd go to a different witch, and he would pay them to try and remove this hex. And then he would work some more, and then he would work some more, and he'd pay another witch, and he'd find another witch, and he still could not remove this hex. So he moved one more time, and that's when he met a woman named Lily. John fell in love, and they got married in 1917. This union appeared to cure John from all of his ailments, and he became a great healer once again. Now, John and Lily decided to have a child. Lily became pregnant. Sadly, the child died in infancy. Later on, she gave birth to another child, but it passed away at just 3 days old. Now, of course, this caused John to feel as though he was hexed again, so he started his search for a cure once more. That is when he came across a man by the name of Andrew Lenhart. Now, Andrew, well-known witch as well, convinced John that the source of the hex had to be someone he was close to, someone he knew very, very well. Now, this caused John to become paranoid and suspicious of everyone around him. He even started accusing his own wife, Lily. Now, this caused Lily to fear for her own life, as Andrew attempted to help another lady named Sally Jane Hagee. She was suffering from a really bad pain, constant nagging pain. So she hired Andrew to help her. He attempted to drive the witches from her home, but failed to heal the pain. This caused her to snap, and she killed her husband, believing he was the source. She later then committed suicide in jail. Now, this forced Lily to have to make a decision. Did she trust John? But with his actions, he couldn't be trusted. So she had a judge order John to an insane asylum. While he was in the insane asylum, Lily filed for divorce. John was committed for a total of 48 days before he finally decided to walk out on his own. No one stopped him. No one even noticed that he was gone. Nobody did anything about it. In 1928, he returned to the cigar factory to his old job. It was there that he had met a man named John Curry and Milton Hess. Now, both of these men believed to be hexed themselves. John Curry was just a 14-year-old who was living in an abusive household, and Milton, he felt his farming and financial failures had to be caused by nothing more than a curse. Now, all this talk only fueled John's obsessions, and he decided to go see a very well-known, powerful witch by the name of Nellie Knoll. Nellie informed John that his source of all of his troubles was a member of the Raymeyer family. When John asked which one, she placed a dollar bill on his hand. Upon removing it, there was an image left behind of none other than Nelson Raymeyer, an older witch who had actually cured John himself at the age of 5 years old. He also employed John as a young boy to help him with farm work and other errands. Nellie also confirmed that Nelson was the one who hexed John Curry and Milton Hess as well. She told them in order to remove the hex, they needed to get Nelson's copy of The Long-Lost Friend and a lock of his hair, and to bury them both 6 feet underground. John was determined to do this. On November 26, 1928, John and his co-worker John Curry went to Nelson's home. Nelson greeted them, and they had a very long talk about the book, but never mentioning the hex or his superstitions. Nelson never actually revealed the book during the entire conversation, and then they realized it was getting very late. Nelson was actually kind enough to allow the two strangers to sleep in his downstairs. When Nelson went to bed, they actually searched the entire home, trying to find the long-lost friend, but they failed miserably. They left the following morning and informed Milton Hess that they needed help to be able to overpower Nelson, to be able to get the book and the hair. Milton offered his 18-year-old son Wilbert to accompany them. They returned that evening on November 27th, and Nelson actually permitted them entry into the home. But before he had the chance to inquire about the return visit, the three men jumped him. Once they had him on the floor, a rope was tied around his legs, and during the struggle, Nelson was beaten and strangled to death. When the three men realized what they had done, they attempted to stage the scene as if it was a robbery gone wrong. They removed all the money in the home before dousing everything in kerosene and then lighting the body on fire. They hoped this would spread, burning down the house and hiding all the evidence. But the fire mysteriously went out on its own. I found this part most intriguing, as in the book there were many spells and charms for preventing and extinguishing fires in the home. 2 days later, a neighbor of Nelson's discovered the crime. After interviewing a handful of people in the area, authorities were informed of Baimar and Curry's visit the night prior to the incident. Soon the three men were taken into custody. This became national news because of all the odd details of the murder. When the trial ended, Wilbur Hess received 10 years in prison. John and Curry both received life sentences. That must have sucked for Curry because he was literally only 14 years old. John ended up being released after serving 23 years and 5 months. He took on the job as a janitor and retired in 1953, living out a quiet and uneventful life from there until 1972, where he was laid to rest at Red Lion Cemetery in York, Pennsylvania. Now that is the end of the story. The house that Nelson was murdered in still stands to this day, although it is marked private property and there's cameras everywhere. It is owned by the great-grandson of Nelson, and he attempted to turn it into a museum, but he wasn't permitted to do so. Well, maybe someday we'll get to look inside. But before I go, I wanted to just go over a few things that I did come across that was in the Powwow, A Long Lost Friend book. First, we will go over the unlucky days in each month. Now, if you were born on one of these days, it says that you are unfortunate and you will suffer much poverty, and whoever takes sick on these days will seldom recover in health. Those who engage to marry on these days become very, very poor and miserable. Neither is it advisable to move from one house to another, nor travel or to bargain or engage in a lawsuit on any of these days. So, good luck with that. But here's another one. If you suffer from a toothache, there is a very simple cure. The book says you are to stir the tooth with a needle until it bleeds. Then you soak a piece of thread in the blood from the tooth. Then you need to make a paste of flour and vinegar and spread that onto a piece of cotton, just like you were buttering toast. Then you simply wrap the cloth around an apple tree root and you tie it tight with the bloody thread. Then you cover it with soil and bury it, and your toothache will go away. Who knew how simple that could be? If I would have known that sooner, it would have saved me a lot of money in dental work. Well, my darlings, that brings us to the end. If you're still curious as to what else the book offers, you can easily purchase it online. And if you dig deep enough, you can actually find a free copy. Just do me a favor and subscribe to my channel before you attempt anything, just in case. As always, take care, stay safe, and thanks for listening.